Well, good afternoon. As the public health trends continue to improve, and as we continue to get a handle on this virus, we are charting our path for economic recovery. My friends, we're getting Ontario back on track, and that means putting people to work. It means getting things built, because there's no better way to get people to work, to stimulate the economy, to drive investment and create jobs. There's no better way than putting Ontario to work. And getting things built, getting infrastructure built, it means roads, bridges, highways, transit, and subways. These infrastructure projects serve our communities, and building them will put tens of thousands of people back to work. This is how we're going to restart jobs and development. It's how we're going to strengthen our communities, and it's how we're going to create opportunities for people. And it starts with getting shovels in the ground on major infrastructure projects. That's why our government is investing over $2.6 billion in highway construction projects this year alone. We're widening Highway 3 between Essex and Leamington from 2 to 4 lanes. We're widening the 401 between London and Tilbury from 4 lanes to 6 lanes. And we are twinning the Garden City Skyway on the QEW going into St. Catharines. These are just some of the projects that we're investing in, we're making to upgrade Ontario highway system. And for every $1 million spent on highway projects, we generate $660,000 in real GDP. That's $660,000 in economic activity through direct and indirect construction jobs. And now more than ever, these investments are critical to getting our economy back on track. That's why we're working on legislation that, if passed, would help build our highway faster. Because people are tired of the potholes, people are tired of being stuck in traffic. So we're going to repair, resurface, and widen these roads. This legislation will also help put affordable home ownership within reach of more Ontario families. We know people are looking for affordable places to live, and we know that people want to live close to transit, good schools, and good jobs. And this dream shouldn't be out of reach for so many people. That's why we're going to build more transit-oriented communities, instead of building standalone subway stations or train stops. We want to be smarter about how we integrate transit into our communities, to have the private sector help pay for the new stations, and at the same time, build more housing options. And we have already proven these partnerships work at the Woodbine and Mimico GO stations. We want to keep this going. My friends, together, we're going to get things built. Together, we're going to get Ontario back to work, and together, we will come back with vengeance. Before I pass it over to Minister Mulroney, and we've been working hard on this, and I want to start off with thanking all the Chief Medical Officers of Health, Chief Medical Officer of Health in Essex, Windsor, Dr. Ahmed, along with Dr. Williams and Dr. Heyer and Matt Anderson. I could list them all. I apologize if I've left any of the doctors out. Most importantly, out of anyone, I want to sincerely thank the people of Leamington and Kingsville for being as patient as he had been. I want to thank the farmers for their cooperation over the weekend and on Friday when we got on a conference call. And I want to reach out to the workers. Thank you for your cooperation. We're moving Leamington and Kingsville into stage 2. As of 12:01 tomorrow morning, these communities can join the rest of the province in reopening. Outbreaks in the community have been contained, the community transmission is low, and we have the resources for testing and contact tracing. Again, I want to thank the mayors and all the great people of Leamington and Kingsville for working with us this period. I know it's great news to everyone, but just one question. I'm coming down to pay you folks a visit. I'm in desperate need of a haircut, so I'm going to be down there. Let's pick a barber somewhere in Leamington or Kingsville, and I just can't wait to go down and thank the people personally. We have the greatest province in the entire world. Thank you, and God bless the people of Ontario. Now I'll turn it over to Minister Mulroney.
Thank you, Premier. Good afternoon, everyone. Bon après-midi à tous. The investments we make today in Ontario's transit and transportation network are critical for securing a prosperous future. Transportation-related construction is vital to our economic recovery, as it is a major driver of economic activity and a significant job creator. Construction puts people to work, increases the money spent in nearby communities, and provides Ontario with infrastructure that keeps people and essential goods moving. Our plan for developing transit-oriented communities will allow us to develop complete communities, focused on connecting people to public transit and housing that is safe and affordable. And much like our plans to deliver priority transit projects faster, we're developing the tools that we need to help us accelerate major highway projects as well. For example, by shortening the timeframes related to land assembly. We will always treat people fairly and appropriately compensate owners, tenants, and others who are impacted by these projects. This will never change. Tout comme nos plans visant à accélérer la réalisation des projets de transport en commun prioritaires, nous mettons au point les outils dont nous avons besoin pour nous aider à accélérer les grands projets d'autoroute. Par exemple, en raccourcissant les délais liés au regroupement des terrains. Nous traiterons toujours les gens de manière juste et indemniseront de manière appropriée les propriétaires, les locataires et les autres personnes touchées par ces projets. Ceci ne changera jamais. But if we want to get shovels in the ground quickly, we need fast access to land to prepare construction sites while balancing the rights of property owners. As we start to reopen the province and rebuild our economy, our government recognizes that communities need reliable transit, transportation, and housing as a strong foundation for future economic growth. Grâce aux initiatives énoncées dans ce projet de loi, nous allons créer des dizaines de milliers de nouveaux emplois bien rémunérés, rendre nos routes plus sécuritaires, réduire les embouteillages et mettre à la portée de plus d'Ontariens la possibilité d'accéder à la propriété. We intend to bring forward legislation that will create tens of thousands of new, well-paying jobs, make our roads safer, reduce gridlock, and put home ownership in closer reach for Ontarians. Our approach will benefit Ontario today and for generations to come. Thank you, merci. I'll now pass it over to Minister Surma.
Good afternoon. Under the leadership of Premier Ford and Minister Mulroney, we have made public transit a top priority in the GTA. We have agreements with York Region and the City of Toronto to achieve our shared goals. We have started procurement on 3 of the 4 key transit projects, and we have introduced legislation that, if passed, will help build our 4 nationally significant subway projects faster. But our plan isn't just to build more transit faster, it's also to build better. Our government will be introducing legislation that, if passed, will enable complete mixed-use communities. They are integrated into new subway stations and designed in partnership with municipal and local input. Transit-oriented communities will be delivered using the lands already required for transit station construction. Instead of building a station in isolation, they will be integrated into a complete transit-oriented community. Transit-oriented communities will benefit the region by increasing ridership, reducing congestion, providing a mix of housing, including affordable housing, daycares, and recreational spaces. They will also create jobs as our economy recovers from COVID-19, while saving taxpayer money by offsetting the cost of station construction. For months, we have been consulting with planners, housing advocates, job creators, and city builders, who point to 3 key barriers that prevent us from realizing this vision. First, assembling lands that can be integrated with stations is a problem. The process is far too long and can take decades to materialize. And the current planning and zoning process must provide more flexibility and certainty to build communities around transit stations. We intend to work with municipal partners. Together, we will develop a time-bound review and approvals process and use provincial tools like ministerial zoning orders only when needed. in keeping with our current memorandums of understanding. Finally, the province lacks the ability to enter into commercial arrangements with the private sector. These are required to allow the province to capture revenue from transit-oriented community projects and can be used to offset station construction costs and deliver more affordable housing and other amenities. Residents have raised concerns as to why nothing gets built and why it takes so long. We are making changes to finally address this. We will build faster and we will build better. We're committed to building a transit system that will get people moving, reduce congestion, and drive economic recovery from COVID-19. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to the phone line for questions.
Well, before I start off, I have to tell you, it's so nice to have the greatest Deputy Premier, Minister of Health back in action, and you look so refreshed. That's great, Christine. But the ironic thing and the truth of the matter is, it's never a break. Even when Christine was away, she was on cabinet calls. The phone was ringing constantly. So I guess it's all part of the job. But at least you were able to get away for a day or so. But let's start off with the questions. And I want to thank the media for not hitting me hard on health questions when my commander-in-chief wasn't with me that day.
Okay, we'll go to the first question.
First question comes from Lucas Meyer from News Talk 1010.
Hi,
Please
Lucas.
go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. And speaking of that, it's a question for Minister Elliott. Minister, you mentioned last week that you needed another week of stage 2 data before going further on stage 3. It's been, I believe, 6 days since you said that. So do you feel you have enough for the command table to make some concrete decisions on stage 3? And can you say when the public may expect an announcement on that?
Well, that information is being reviewed right now. I can't name a specific date, but I can tell you that the team is actively looking at the data and looking to move into stage 3 as soon as we possibly can. We're fortunate we haven't seen huge outbreaks, and I think that's very good news. We had 154 cases from yesterday. The numbers have been quite low, relatively speaking, and so it is something that we are looking to move into stage 3 as soon as we possibly can, but that data is being assessed right now.
And my next one is to the Premier. Premier, I know you've been asked this before, but we continue to hear from frontline workers who say they still have not received pandemic pay. I understand the process, how it's about providing funding to the employers, and they administer that to the employees. And some are more challenging than others, especially if there's no prior financial relationship. But all that considered, how much do you think the government is responsible for with some workers still not getting paid? But also, how much do you think the employers themselves are responsible if you think they're not administering this fast enough and correctly enough?
Well, that's an excellent question. I'll answer it this way because I was briefed on it last week when I said, where's the money flowing and when is it flowing? They said the vast majority of the money has flowed. I'm going to put this into perspective. They had to deal with over 2,000 employers. So those 2,000 employers that had to be contacted, set up the program. Out of the 375,000 incredible workers. My biggest disappointment on this, we couldn't give more people. That's my disappointment. But the money is, I think 80-90% has flowed from the province. Now it's with the employers. But everyone is getting paid, and it's retroactive right from the get-go of this. So the ones who haven't paid, hopefully they'll get a nice big check and they can do what they want with it. I just want to thank them very much for doing an incredible job for us. But again, the money's flowed from here, and I'll follow up again to see if there's even 10% left that hasn't flowed, and if that's the case, we'll make sure it flows.
Next question.
Next question comes from Mike Crawley from CBC News. Please go ahead.
Hi, Mike.
Hi, Premier. Just wondering about some concerns around the province's move here on fast-tracking these developments around transit stations. Are there any risks to this that you'll be overriding in addition to property rights, environmental assessments, any of those kinds of things? Or do you see is there any downside that you would acknowledge to the fast-tracking that you're going to do?
Before I pass it to Minister Surma, People are tired of waiting. You know, Mike, you've seen it. You've been around for a long time, so have I, and you've seen this delay after delay. Now we have everyone on side. We have the council and the mayor on side in Toronto and up in York Region as well. And I want to thank everyone for their support. We aren't going to take any shortcuts. We're going to cross the T's, dot the I's, but we're going to do it much quicker than the typical way government does business. But I'll pass it over to the minister. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Premier. And to add to your comments, I just want to emphasize how critically important continuing engaging with our municipal partners is, as well as local input for this process. In fact, I would say that local input is key to this program's success. And so we have formed a historic partnership with the City of Toronto in terms of building transit faster, and we're going to continue down that path and continue the engagement with our municipal partners as well as local communities.
And my next question is for my colleague Lisa Shing for the Premier in relation to the announcement from Minister Lecce of the plan to end streaming in high school. What supports are going to be put in place to help make sure the students who might struggle in some of the courses, academic courses, will be able to succeed in high school? And what specific things are you going to do to make sure that young people who experience anti-Black racism get equal opportunities in the system going forward?
Yeah, well, good question, and the minister will be out this week. He'll be making that announcement. But we're the only province in the entire country that does this, and it really is. It's not fair to certain groups of students. You know, you're really almost stigmatizing one group, saying, okay, you're only gonna go to, you know, X amount grade 12, and then you're going to college. And by the way, I think college is fantastic, and trades are great. So 50% of Black students don't go on to the academic side of high school, which is unfair when one in five or vast majority of students, let's say 90% or 80%, I should say, go on to the academic level. And the other thing that I've never found fair with this, you're asking a 14-year-old child to make a decision in grade 9 where the rest of their high school career and post-secondary schools that they're going to. And it's just, I just don't think it's right. It's a broken system. We've heard nothing but positive remarks from communities, and I've heard it from teachers, I've heard it from everyone across the board. So I think it's a really good move for the parents and the students and the teachers.
Next question.
Next question comes from Randy Rath from CHTV. Please go ahead.
Hi, Randy.
Hi, Premier. There's a growing body of evidence that the primary transmission route for COVID is airborne, and that people don't need to be coughing or sneezing to spread it into the air, that they can simply be talking or breathing, for that matter. I'm wondering, is this not a bad sign going into stage 3 for the hospitality industry? Like, you can't go to a restaurant and have dinner wearing a mask. You can't sit at a bar wearing a mask. Is this going to, preclude restaurants and bars from opening up inside until there's a vaccine?
Well, I don't think it's going to preclude restaurants from opening up, but let me pass it over to the Minister of Health. Thank you.
Well, there's still a lot about COVID-19 that we don't know about, but the evidence to date suggests that it is droplet spread, and that can happen if people are sitting very close together. Singing sometimes can be a problem, coughing and so on. But in terms of people respecting social distancing, being out on patios right now, the public health is satisfied that that's not going to transmit COVID, but we have to be concerned about indoor establishments. And so when restaurants do open fully inside, again, people will have to be seated some distance apart from other groups. But if they go out with people that are in their social circle, then that shouldn't be a problem in terms of those are people that are all together in the same group, that they are only within one circle. If someone does, for whatever reason, come down with COVID-19, then the contact tracing will be easier and easier to contain. So we still need to be very careful as we open up the economy, as we move into stage 3. There are many considerations that have to be brought to bear, but we certainly know that there are many restaurants that are willing to make the arrangements that public health requires in order to be able to safely open, even if it's only at perhaps 25–30% capacity. But that is an issue that definitely will be borne in mind.
Yeah, okay, this next question may be for the minister as well. You see in other jurisdictions that the testing method, they're using saliva-based test as opposed to sticking the swab halfway to your brain, up your nose. Why isn't Ontario using that method, and wouldn't it be easier and better to have a less invasive test when we're sending kids back to school, and if they show up, they're going to need to show up with symptoms, they're going to need to be tested? Wouldn't it just simplify the whole system?
Well, they are less invasive, the saliva tests, there's no question about that, but they're also less accurate. So we are finding that the nasal swabs give the best results, the most accurate results, and that's what we really need right now. Not to do the test just for the sake of doing a test, but doing a test that's going to accurately tell you whether someone has COVID-19 or not. So as far as children are concerned, there's no question that you need to have someone that's very experienced with dealing with children, especially small children, as they may wriggle a bit, and they also have more delicate nasal passages. So whoever is going to be doing that testing needs to be very experienced with that.
Next question.
Next question comes from Matt Simard from Radio Canada. Please go ahead.
Hi, Matt.
Oh, hi, Premier. I would like to know what you thought of large crowds at several beaches in Toronto over the weekend. What is the solution to make sure people are respecting social distancing? Because clearly some people didn't hear your advice to seek out less crowded parks and beaches.
Yeah, good question, Matt. You know, I saw pictures of Center Island. It was one of the islands. It was just absolutely packed. And again, all along from day one, Matt, we've relied on the people and have done an incredible job. And that's the reason we're in good shape compared to other regions our size in North America, is because the people listen. I just, ask the people, plead with the people, practice social distancing. It's critical. The other, when you analyze it, Matt, I sat back and I thought, okay, this is happening more and more. We've seen. Do you know what it is? There's so many people living in condos in downtown Toronto. I feel sorry for them. They want to get out. You start going squirrely in a house or a condo or townhome. You want to get outside, and there's only so much space here and so many beaches in Toronto. I understand the situation. So let's try to spread out a little bit. Go to an Ontario park, take a drive, but just be careful. And I think everyone's doing their very, very best. But practice social distancing. Rule number one, I always say the golden rule, practice social distancing. Rule number one. And right behind that, wear a mask when you can.
Follow up.
My next question is for Minister Mulroney.
Yep.
Question en français. Comment pouvez-vous vous assurer, avec le nouveau projet de loi, que les préoccupations des résidents seront entendues si le processus des audiences de nécessité n'a pas lieu? Puis, est-ce que les résidents qui sont à proximité des projets ont encore des recours s'ils s'opposent au projet?
Un des grands éléments de ce projet de loi, c'est la consultation avec les intervenants municipaux et des communautés qui sont impactées par la construction du transport en commun. Donc, il y aura beaucoup de chances pour les communautés de donner voix à ce qui leur dérange. Et pour les audiences de nécessité, nous sommes en train de développer un autre processus qui va donner la chance aux propriétaires d'avoir un endroit pour porter leur plainte.
Okay, last question.
Last question comes from Christina Tanalia from CB24.
My new French tutor just spoke there. Good French teacher for me.
Hi, Premier. Hi, Minister. This question is for Minister Mulroney. You're well aware, we've been hearing from a lot of people about the backlog for drive tests. Wondering when people in this province, young people especially, will be able to book once again tests for their G2 and G. And at the same time, driving instructors are wondering when they can restart driving lessons.
Absolutely. Well, as I indicated when we made the announcement about our phased and gradual reopening of the drive test centers, we have a significant backlog for commercial drivers as well as for G licensed drivers. And so we have introduced a gradual and phased approach. The first part is to allow commercial drivers who need to get their road test done, give them the opportunity to do that. We want to make sure that we can keep our goods moving across Ontario. So that's critical. And then we also have a significant backlog of knowledge tests for our G1 and G2 drivers. So we want to make sure that those drivers have a chance to do those. And then once we have, as we've assessed the situation and determined how the backlog is going, then we will be able to move into the next phase. But from the beginning, we've asked for patience. We hear a lot from families, from drivers, and from commercial drivers that they're eager to get back on the road and get these tests done. But we need to do so in a prudent way that maintains the health and safety of the students, but also of those who work in the drive test centers.
Okay, thank you. My next question is for the Premier. Premier, your government said in March that hearings related to residential evictions would be halted until further notice due to restrictions related to the pandemic, and that no new residential eviction orders would be issued.
Yes.
We've been hearing from some people, and they're wondering, with more people working again, when does this residential eviction ban get lifted? One caller to our newsroom from Barrie says he has elderly parents who rely on rent from a tenant, and that tenant is working and refusing to pay since, for months now.
Yeah, it's frustrating as anything when I hear those stories. It was kind of the honor system. If you're collecting money, even you're collecting the $2,000 a month, or you're working, and you're trying to shaft your landlord, that's an individual. It's not fair. We're fair here in Ontario, and everyone's been cooperating. The person to those two elderly people, pay your rent. You're working. Well, you're trying to shaft some seniors that they rely on that income. You got to get morals and scruples, and come on. That wasn't the purpose. The purpose was when people are really, really hurting, and they just can't afford to pay rent. We covered them. And I'll always cover them, always protect the little guy. Now I want to protect the two seniors that rely on that rent, and the person's working. And what, are you going to let these seniors get hurt? No, that's not part of the rules. So we'll be reviewing that, and when we get the economy up and going, we'll revisit that shortly. But the message to that person, pay your rent. Simple.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone.